If you guys enjoy this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew, and today we're back with another figure review, or two figures, I should say. Today we're taking a double review at the MonsterArts Godzilla 2019 and 2021. This is going to be basically like a remaster, I know, remastered, who doesn't like remasters, of the MonsterArts Godzilla 2019, thrown in with the Godzilla vs. Kong release. And the reason why I'm doing this, because I only took a look at this guy, I think back in either February or March, is because I'm going to be honest, I look back at that review kind of a bit disappointed, because I'll be honest, I did cover basically all the essentials like sculpt and paint, articulation, size, accessories, price, yada, yada, yada. But what really kind of ticks me off about that is the way it was filmed. See, I use an LG, or I used to use an LG phone. It was, I can't remember when I got it, like a few years ago, but the lens itself actually fell off and I didn't bother to replace it or anything, and I continued rolling with it. And you can definitely tell because it has a lot of focus issues and it just doesn't look that crisp of quality compared to this, where you can actually see a lot better. My hands look a lot better, the figures look a lot better. And so I wanted to go back and remaster that, but also kind of throw in the 2021 iteration, because they are effectively gonna say it, the same sculpt. They are not different, they are the same. Base on base sculpt minus paint, they are the same. Maybe there's a bit of retools, but for all intents and purposes, they are the same. So with that said, let's take a look at these two in a brand new HD iteration of my review series. Plus, I also want to steer away from NECA for a bit. I know that sounds very out of character for me, but I put out like what, 8, 9 NECA reviews already, counting the ones that are currently scheduled for release in a few days. So yeah, I'm gonna have a crap ton of NECA stuff on the way. Plus, I just want to put out revisiting some Monster figures. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at these two. So for the sculpt and paint, starting with the 2019 release, the 2019 figure, I'm gonna be honest, is I'm gonna actually address this. In my original review, I said that this thing was entirely one note of color. That is incorrect. And I would like to apologize for that, because as you can see, he's actually got a bit of colorization on the body, particularly in the neck region. But actually focusing on the head, I'll be honest and say that the head could have been done a bit better. As far as the head shape, it's definitely a lot more narrow than something like the actual movie design would be, but it's actually got a really nice amount of sculpted details. We can see all the ridge details at like the top of the head and on the nostrils themselves, although the nostrils maybe could be a bit more defined, especially from MonsterArts level of detail. The sides of the face, we can see, have a lot of that nice kind of like charcoal end detail. Looks very nice. Bottom of the jaw, I think I just popped off his head, whatever. Has a little bit more softer details, but kind of keep like that wavy pattern going. And you can kind of see like there's a bit of like a roughed up, dirty wash on this guy, which I'm, again, kind of pleasantly surprised to see. This side of the head doesn't really have that in comparison to this, so it's definitely a bit mismatched. For the inside of the mouth, we have a lot of nice red paint. Like, that's actually some really nice red paint. Inside the gums itself, let's actually just, I can't find you. Want off? Fine, let's get you off. For the actual mouth, again, we have some like more maroon dry brushing, which I think that's a brilliant combination. Red paint and maroon dry brush. And you can see the membrane even kind of follows that. Maybe the membrane's a bit too dark, because it almost looks like a reversal where the red is the wash and the maroon is the dry brushing. So maybe that's what it is, but it doesn't look as vibrant as it could be, so there's that. Tongue actually looks really nice, and I do like how they kind of keep it a different color from the actual gums and membrane, which actually gives it a bit more color variety, and we can see like all the ridges and details, particularly on the tongue and the roof of the mouth, while the membranes have a bit more like lineage work. For the eyes, they are fairly basic, having just like basic eyes, like eyeballs, and then you get the one pupil, which it doesn't really have a whole lot of detail to it, but it does look rather nice. They are decals, so they're actually going to be a separate piece put inside the plastic. And you kind of see, because there's a bit of a gap. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. I don't know if this thing can zoom in that well. There you go. Wow, I underestimated my camera. Look at that. So yeah, there's going to be a separate piece in there, just to get you guys a better look at that. Awesome sauce. Who uses that term anymore? I don't know. But yeah, just to get you guys like a good amount of that crisp detail on the head. Like, that is awesome. We'll move on in just a quick sec. And I would also like to talk about the teeth, because the top row teeth doesn't look that great. Mine's got a bit of chippage, but that could just be because of the previous owner, because I did buy this used. It's also got a bit of yellowish tint to it. I don't know if that's from, it can't be from me. And the teeth down here are a bit better, but also have like a weird pink wash to them. And some of them are also a bit chipped, so yeah. Anyway, we'll unzoom out because it's looking a bit uncanny. There you go. So, I'm popping the head back on. I think we've spent enough time with the head. The neck has these really nicely sculpted gills. They're not as defined as the 2014 version from what I've seen on photos, but here you can actually see that they are very well done and are very like nicely squared off, and we have all these like different scaling details and such. We also have like a bit of a dry brushing here for the neck, and it looks really nice, really spectacular, I'll say. And I will say I'm not really a fan of the way like the color transition goes, because it looks very solid, not solid, but solid colorization, and then kind of goes to like back to the charcoal black. So depending on your lighting conditions and your, I guess, version of figure, because it does tend to flip-flop from time to time, it does tend to do that. So like you have a bit of like wash here, and then more dry brushing on this piece, because this is a separate piece of the figure, and then you have the dry brushed yet again, and it just doesn't look right. It almost reminds me of the Shin Godzilla, where it was like black, red, and then back to black. And it's almost like that on a much more dilated level, but it's still pretty obvious depending on lighting conditions. Because like I'm looking at it in person, it's not as bad as I have it on camera. So maybe it's just the camera picking it up. But it does have some really nice detail. Again, it has a lot of nice ridges here. Very accurate to the film. I don't think that they used the model. I think they actually did use the model, but Yuji Sakai himself went in and did some like extra details and such. For the spines, which we're just going to talk about the spines right out of the gate, because there's nothing really special to write home about the fins, other than like proportionally they are probably very accurate, more so than the NECA would be, I feel like, because the NECA did have some extended fins. These ones look pretty picture perfect, but I can safely say that these ones, at least these fins, are mostly one note color. There's really not a whole lot of wash or colorization to them, and they definitely look on the more flat side, and it just doesn't look the way that it could be. Because you can definitely see, like, they've got some amazing detail work. Like, you can just see that. Absolutely amazing. Going to this side. However, my main problem is that maybe this one has a bit of wash here and there, but they're just kind of one note. Again, the movie, Godzilla was never the most colorful, but it doesn't really look the best here. But what does safely look better is going to be the front of the body, which, unlike the dorsal plate, there's actually a bit of paint job on the actual front of it, where the stomach and the chest are. The details here are very defined, having where his, I don't even know how much that is, because you get 2, 4, 6, I guess you consider that 8th, and then 10th pack there, so there's that. But you can have the bit of a charcoal base with the kind of more dry brushing. I think, just for spoilers if you haven't seen the figure, but GVK's Godzilla does it a bit better as far as the actual dry brush it looks. but it does look actually pretty nice, all things considered. But with the sides of the body, you do get a bit more like there. It's very minute, but there is a bit of color variation. You can see this one's a bit darker than the sides of it. Moving down to the claws, which we can actually see a bit of dry brush and a bit of paint work here for the claws themselves, which is nice to see. Mine's got a bit of a weird, like, I don't even know, like bit of plastic that kind of bends down a little too far. It is rather pointy. But we have the arms, which are going to be very well sculpted and kind of have like that dirty-ish paint application that the rest of the body also has. We can also see it here more towards like the upper arm and here towards his lower elbow. Just to take a look at the claws here, they look actually pretty well done too. The paint job's really only down to like one side, it looks like, because you can kind of see like it doesn't have it here, but when you actually move it to the outskirts, yeah, it doesn't really look 100% finished, which I get it. It's a very minor detail, but for like, what was this thing? Like $60 to $80 on pawn release? Yeah, no. We actually have a decent spray here that's only like on one part of the hand, which is like, and then this part of the hand doesn't really have it, but you can kind of see that there is a bit of a gray spray. I don't really think there is on this side, on this hand, but yeah, that's not, it's just something worth pointing out. But for another look at the arm, there you go. Sides of the body, again, that crisp, nice detail that we can get throughout the entirety of the figure. Looks absolutely great. And yeah, that's just kind of covering the body. I will say, like, even though this kind of leans more into articulation, the body just doesn't look right. Spoilers, mine's actually a bit warped. So there is that, in case you're wondering. Taking a look at these big, meaty kickers here. The dry brushing doesn't really like make itself known here. So this part definitely is more like one color, one note a bit, but you can definitely still see that the details are very well done. There's some impressive like dry brush and scaling work here where it's a bit more like straightened off, and then here you got like a bit more curved where it meets the main body. And then here you have like the kneecap, which just looks absolutely amazing. Same on this side, just to kind of give a little reflection, not too much, not too bad. Here's like the back of the legs, back of the shins, where it kind of has like this little bulge where his foot is. And then you kind of have like the more different dies details where the front is a bit more lined up. This one's a bit more scaled down. And then for the feet, we have all this like very dirty paint applications for the claws, which I will say are done all right. They're not like the worst thing ever. I think I would have liked a little bit more wash, because again, spoilers for the Godzilla vs. Kong one, it does it a bit better than this. And for the detail work here at the bottom of the feet, it's actually done very, very well. And I'm actually shocked as to how well it is. We have the copyright, trademark, legendary Toho Company Limited, made in China, yada, yada, yada. You get the works. And for the last part is going to be the tail, which actually does have a bit of colorization. I don't know why I keep bumping into the damn camera like that. But you can definitely see that that you have parts like this part of the tail, which are going to be more like brownish, and then the next segment is going to be more like gray and black. So it does look a little iffy depending on your lighting, but again, it does look really nice as far as the actual sculpt department, which we have all these jagged dorsal plates leading down to like the very tip of the tail. Underneath, which we have more like the wavy lines, which look really nice and really well detailed here. This is actually some really nice sculpting work. Just to give you guys one final look at this. Very nice, very nice, very nice. There we go. So, and then of course here's over top. I just want like all of the detail to be soaked in here. This angle, and then we'll end it off with this side of the tail. So you definitely see that there's a bit of variation, almost to like a fault, where it's like darker, lighter, darker, then you almost have like some sort of like wash in here and then goes back to darken, a little lighter. So you can, yeah, it's a bit iffy as far as like the tail looks. It almost looks like this thing had like a crap ton of repaints, almost like real life, and had like, and this is like a mix match. Like you can obviously see that this is a bit lighter than this next segment, so that is a bit of a downside. But for the actual MonsterArts 2019 Godzilla, even though this is the technically speaking first time with this mold, I do enjoy what we have here. Is it really well detailed? Yes, absolutely. The paint job, I still think, is going to be a weak aspect of the figure, because there are spots where I feel like there could have been a bit more tightened up, and parts where I feel like they could have added a bit more paint, particularly in the dorsal plate region, because maybe like a dry brushing, kind of like what NECA did, would be a bit more better. And even though, again, there is a clear wash and clear dry brushing to this thing under certain lighting conditions, that's also the problem. Certain lighting conditions. I didn't realize that there was actually different paint work on this thing up until like recently when I put this thing up into a better light. So really, like, it's a bit weird as to like what they were trying to do. Maybe they were trying to do a more grounded look, which totally understandable. Then they would do like Burning Godzilla, event exclusive Godzilla, and the poster of Godzilla, which threw all of that out the window. But here, I honestly think that, again, the paint needed a lot of work. The sculpt is pretty much almost flawless. The only thing I really would dock off like some sort of point is, like, as far as the sculpt goes, is for the head. Because I definitely think that the head could have looked a little bit better. And the paint, again, could have been a lot better. So sculpt and paint. Sculpt is amazing, but the paint really dials it back. So I'm going to give this thing a personal critical ranking of, I really hate putting it this low, but 7.5 out of 10. I'm sorry, but the paint just, it doesn't look good in certain conditions like this, and just, I like it when it's a bit more, maybe it was better if it was 1-0, or maybe control paint as opposed to like this part having more paint than this part. So yeah, sorry, but again, it's still good, but just not great. Next up is the Godzilla vs. Kong figure, which was released 2 years later in 2021 for the Godzilla vs. Kong movie. And basically speaking, this thing shares the exact same sculpt, base mold, almost base mold, as the original. The only main difference is going to be the paint and the hands. We'll talk about the hands, but also features, at least like as far as I can tell, a different like quality of plastic, which for the actual head, which we're going to pretty much do what we did with the King of the Monsters Godzilla, the head itself is going to be very well detailed. I think honestly the detail might be a bit better captured on this head than this head. Yeah, they're definitely two different colors as far as like, you can see that it's molded a bit differently. It's actually a tad bit smaller too, because like look at it nostril on nostril. That is a smaller head. That is interesting. I've known that for a while too. But the actual sculpt here kind of gets rid of the paints, like the dry brushing that the MonsterArts 2019 had. It actually gives you a bit more of a, I don't want to say bluish, but it has a bit more of a blue hue to it. Almost like if you were to take this guy and run it under a blue filter, which actually kind of fits because you actually get the reflective blue plastic used. And for that blue plastic, you actually have it in the eyes, which are solid blue, and then you have it all inside the mouth, featuring the tongue, teeth, and gums, and the membrane. And while I will say is that it definitely looks very more appealing to the eyes. Also, you do get the spray like back here for the fins. It does look a lot more catching to the eyes. However, I do have a personal problem with it, as this is literally all you get. It's just blue, the same shade of glittery blue. And in hindsight, yes, I am a sucker for my blues, but at the same time, I do wish there was a bit more gradation. Like, why not do like a NECA V2 2019 approach where there was several blues inside of that figure's mouth? Granted, it didn't look necessarily the most coherent, but that maybe could have been something you didn't have to do. Ride home with the chaotic nature of the figure instead of just doing it one note like this. And that's ultimately where this figure's biggest flaw is just the blue is entirely one note. But we do get some dry brushing with the actual neck piece. So moving this figure back to its original state. There we go. For the dry brushing on the neck and chest, I'm gonna say that I do prefer the way this looks over the gkotm Godzilla, just because it's a lot more vibrant and it's a lot more apparent and it's a lot more controlled. It's not like one segment has this color, one segment doesn't. It's actually the same coherent color throughout the entirety of the chest. And that's something I actually do applaud MonsterArts for doing. And as you can see, has a lot of nice kind of peach-ish detail. Very reminiscent of the NECA 2014. As I made mention with the arms that come with this figure base are going to be a lot more splayed versus this one where it's a lot more relaxed. And note about those relaxed hands in just a bit, but also have better painted claws than that of the original MonsterArts Godzilla, and it just looks a lot cleaner. And that's ultimately what I have to say about the actual look of the sphere. It looks a bit cleaner. It has a lot more controlled paint applications as far as like the transition from piece to piece goes. Arm piece, the shoulder piece, the neck piece, the head piece, shoulder, legs, and the tail. Speaking of which is going to be the spines, and like I made mention, it's pretty much the exact same damn thing as the MonsterArts. You can actually see it's a bit more like shining off my camera. I want to see if I can actually get rid of that. Okay, so unfortunately, it doesn't look like I am. I mean, I kind of muted it, but it's still a little bit reflective. But as you can see, there is an incredible blue. I love this blue that they picked. It's almost like teal, like a Perry the Platypus type color, but it's a lot more vibrant and reflective in person. And on camera, even though it is reflecting, it doesn't do it justice as to how beautiful this thing actually looks. We have the dry brushing of blue and wash of blue inside, and you can actually see like the base color peeking through, which is the way I'd actually like it to be. Am I going nuts, or are those that two different colors? I think I might just be going nuts at this point, but you definitely see like it looks really nice, and even actually all of the spines are individually painted. They didn't have to do it, but they did, even down to the very tip of the tail. Thank you, MonsterArts. Also, just to show the claws on the feet, just look a little bit more refined in the way I'd want them to look as opposed to this, where they do look a bit more dialed back versus this. So, realistically speaking, yeah, it just has a lot more of a clean cut paintwork as opposed to this one looking a bit more dirty. So, ultimately, like, what is my pros and cons of each? Well, actually, first let's actually rank this guy accordingly, because again, effectively, he's about the same sculpt, except for the hands, maybe the head, and the paintwork here. The head, actually, I'll say looks better on this one than it does on the original. Even though it's a bit smaller, it actually does look a bit sharper, and honestly just looks the way that it should as far as like it being more color and one-noted. So I'll say the head is better, and the sculpt work actually is about even, so I'm not going to touch that. But the paint work, I have a different problem. There's just not that much paint. So it just seems like the paint was improved where there is paint. But I definitely feel like there's just not enough paint, because it's the same blue effectively speaking, it's the same blue. The eyes, the spines, even at the tip of the tail to the mouth, it's the same blue. And the dry brush here just doesn't, it looks great, but where's the rest of the paint on the body? Realistically, I feel like MonsterArts should be adding a bit more colorization to their Godzillas. So that's ultimately like my biggest problem, and make it a bit more controlled. So if that's what they did for this release, I think I would have loved it a bit more. But as far as like my actual rating goes, I'm going to have to go a 7.5 with this guy. The sculpt is still incredible. The paint work, where there is paint, is actually really good. But 7.5, 7 out of 10 as far as the actual sculpt and paint goes. Next up is articulation, which we're going to actually just start with this one because effectively they are the same. We have a ball joint here at the jaw. Yes, a ball joint, not a hinge. You can actually see the peg in there, so you can actually kind of rock it back and forth in there a little bit. The tongue is on a ball joint, but it's angled in a way where it effectively only gets you a swivel. And I don't want to touch it because the last time I did, I almost went too far and it popped out. So the base head can go up about that far with a free floating piece, down about that far. Let's actually angle this up a little bit more. There you go. Up and down, and then side to side, and can swivel a little bit. It's not meant to be a swivel, but you can swivel a little bit. For this neck piece, it doesn't move a whole lot, but you can actually kind of go down and up and can rock and swivel a little bit. It's very minute, but the two joints together, you can actually get Godzilla looking all the way up. Keep this in mind while we go to the accessories, which you can probably already guess what it is, and you probably already know what it is, but that's it. The neck nape area, the nape, I guess, is going to be a bit static just because it's meant to be like a bit more extra flexibility in like certain directions. So when you go up like this and down, you can kind of see it like that. So I'm not sure what joint that's on. Maybe it's on a ball peg, but it's very restricted thanks to the sculpt work. The arms are going to be on ball joints. However, here they're a bit limited just because of the way it's sculpted. So you can't really get a whole lot of range. You can go out to the side a little bit, swivel in there. This one, maybe a tad bit more rotation, but really, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. But what you can get is a double hinge, so you can actually go straighten out about this far, bend in, swivel here and here, a swivel hinge at the wrists, so you can actually swivel like this, hinge like this, and you can swivel. And then if you turn the peg the right way, you can actually get a different angle of hinge. So do keep that in mind as you're rotating. Moving down, where we can get more movement at the waist, which for the waist, we have two joints. So one up here, which I guess I have to angle back up. The frustration of the camera, ladies and gentlemen. We can go down about that far, up. So we can go a bit like this. Kind of looks like a pair of overalls, honestly. Not too much in the way of rotation, but this one, you can actually go swivel a little bit, at least on mine, because right here, this is warped. I'm not sure if the previous owner of this guy, because I bought this on the secondhand market, did this, or this was a matter of like a manufacturing issue, but it does have a bit of a rotation issue, just like this. So there is that. The legs are actually pretty well sculpted. Although again, I would like to correct myself that in the past I've said that these two pieces collide in with each other. No, they don't. Actually, I'm gonna quickly remove this. That was surprisingly easy. Yeah, this is definitely 100% warped. You can see that. But they're actually held together by a piece of plastic. So they actually do not, I mean, they kind of do like underneath, but they don't like actively get in the way of each other thanks to this piece of plastic that like bridges the two of them. Kind of bugs me that's not centered, but maybe that's part of the design. Now you can't see it. Anyway, For the leg, it can go practically a full 360 degrees and can go out to the side like this. And because of the extra sculpt, you can kind of bridge the gap a bit. Although do keep in mind, don't be a complete douche with it. And no barbell style ball joints going to be saving you from that. Yeah, I'm going to be kind of leaving Godzilla a bit torso-less. For the knees, we can actually straighten out about this far, bend in about that far, and kind of rotate. You actually do get a pretty big amount of range with it, and it is a double hinge, of course. We have not a swivel hinge, a ball joint at the ankle or the shin, the calf area, and of course we have a ball joint here at the foot, which is going to be mainly doing a lot of heavy lifting. And of course, from here, which is going to be the last big dorsal plate until you get to like the tail dorsal plates. This part's actually going to be a free floating piece to help cover up gappage. And then from there, you actually get a crap ton of ball joints. I don't know how much there are, nor do I want to count that many right now, but you do get the ability to go out to the side like this, go out to the side like that, go down if you really, really wanted to, or can go up about that far. So reassembling Godzilla, you do get a very, very wide amount of joints. Okay, there we go. I swear I almost broke something. Did I? No, I did not. Anyway, overall, for the articulation, there's a lot to love. There's a lot to actually play around with because of things like the arms, the head, the waist, and the legs, and the tail. That said, there are some things that are a bit limited, like the shoulders and the nape area in particular. Like if you're going to give it the articulation, I'd limit that much. And yeah, that's really like my only criticism I actively have with this thing. But shockingly, we can actually go a step further because this guy, the GVK Goji, actually gives us a bit more freed up motion. And I kind of figured out the reason why. It's because, I don't know if this is actually the best example of this, but popping off the heads, it seems like, again, I can't really say it is, but it almost looks like the joints are engineered, not necessarily differently, but like these joints are a bit more bulged out in comparison to the KOTM joints. And as a result, you can actually get a bit more motion with them, but also it comes at the cost of actually having a bit more gappage. What I mean by this is, let's just look at the head. So again, we're going to read side articulation here. Ball joint at the jaw, ball joint here at the tongue, ball joint here at the head, which can go a lot farther up than the KOTM Godzilla, but still can be pretty gapped with that. A bit more of a freed up neck and a bit more of a mildly freed up nape joint, which can go a little bit more, but not by much. And this is what I was kind of talking about with the shoulders, because the shoulders here are a bit more popped out and they can spin a little bit more freely versus the KOTM Godzilla, where they're a bit more kind of like in the joint and you can't, or a bit more in the sculpt and you can't really rotate it versus this one where you can like rotate it for days. But it does kind of come at the cost of the sculpt, which is kind of clear where the sculpt kind of like cuts off. And then you can get the swivel hinge elbows to actually go a little bit farther back, go in and can swivel, of course, and swivel hinge wrists, which are a lot more popped out and can get a bit more range. Again, much like I said here, look at that versus look at that. So you do get that. This part is luckily not warped, so you do get that. So you can actually get a bit more range as far as like looking up and down with the chest goes. And you can actually get a mild rotation, which is actually pretty nice. Something I also do appreciate is that the sculpt and paint is actually like carried through with the actual like sculpt. So you can actually see that it continues being blue and they don't cut it off. Anyways, the leg spread makes a return and I can kind of get a bit more range with this part particularly. So yes, it's definitely like engineered as far as the joints goes. And you can actually get a bit more bendage out of the knee here. A bit more fluidity with the foot and calf, although that could just be because I've had this thing longer. And a lot more range with the tail. Like, I could not bend my KOTM Godzilla in this far. Can I? Let's see. No, it's clear. It's close, but definitely kind of clear that it's a bit more stiffer and a bit more tight. So the GVK Godzilla's tail or joint has it a bit more like bulged out a little bit. So it gives you a bit more range at the cost of constantly popping off. So overall, for the actual articulation on both, I'm going to have to say I do prefer the GVK Godzillas, because even though it does pop off, technically speaking, a bit more, and I absolutely hate it when figures this expensive are doing that. Then again, it is kind of like a reoccurring theme for MonsterArts figures to have popping off joints. It just expresses itself a lot better than that of the KOTM Godzilla because of the more extended joints. So for articulation, technically, so to speak, this is an improvement, even though cutting-wise, engineering-wise, and such, it is the exact same thing as this one. It does it better because they actually changed it, so the range is a bit different. Although the gaps are going to be a bit of a problem, as long as you know what you're doing, it's going to look not seamless, but seamless. That said, I'm going to give articulation 9 out of 10 for this one, because I definitely feel like there could have been some joints that are frayed up to this guy to a 9.5. That said, there you go. Now for accessories, and I kind of wanted to put these two together just because we're going to be talking about them in the same way. So let's go ahead and talk about them in the same way. So for the King of the Monsters Godzilla, it comes with an alternate splash effect jaw piece that is going to be opened up with a atomic burst. And for the detail itself, it's actually a bit better than the jaw that comes on the actual figure. The membrane is a bit not as painted like to the jaw as it could be, so that is going to be a bit of a problem, as we're going to see. But the actual translucent piece actually does a really nice job at like transitioning it from the main piece, so it's not like completely translucent. And it has like a nice wavy texture of like a deep dark sea blue, and I do like the blue choice that they did give this thing, which perfectly goes to the actual beam effect, which I was thrilled to find out that I could actually have this, because I was thinking that I wasn't going to be getting the beam, but then I got the beam. Anyway, so for the actual like beam itself, this is going to be a reissue, technically, so to speak, of the 2014 beam, which for the difference between the Spitfire 2014 and the KOTM beam, sculpt-wise, they are the exact same, but the color is different. This is a dark deep sea blue. That one was a more like lime green, almost like this guy's. We'll talk about him in just a sec. But for the actual like fire part, which we have kind of like a Lisa Simpson silhouette looking part here, almost looks like a flower or like a maple leaf. We have like all the like wavy pieces of like detail here, and then we have like down here, which we have like all the flame parts, which get progressively smaller and smaller the more you go until you reach the tip. And we just have like all these like little waves of detail, which look really nice. And of course you have the little peg hole, which I sadly do not have an accessory for this thing. I'm gonna have to maybe get one off Amazon. And of course we have actually like a bit of like silver highlights. I didn't even notice this until like afterwards, and this is actually really cool. I again thought that this was just a one-note thing, but no, there's actually paint here, and it looks really nice. Although it is confined to mainly like this side. What you see is what you get. There you go. And I don't know if like the beam is naturally supposed to look like this, but I do kind of find like the design of the beam a bit weird, because like here it kind of looks a bit straightened, and then here almost looks like two different pieces put together. Because like if you put down this piece almost like goes downish. I don't know. So there's that. And the beam is about that tall. So you do get actually a fairly nice package with that Godzilla. What about this Godzilla? Comes with the King of the Monsters hands sculpted and painted to look like the GVK Godzilla, which is not that very different. Anyways, let's talk about it. So first we're actually going to talk about the GVK accessories because they're a little less complicated. Here we can see that they are the more relaxed hands that actually come with the KOTM hands. So effectively I have these two. But you might be wondering why I'm only showing one. Well, if you're new to the channel, I actually never actually had the other hand. Yeah, funny story. My dad bought this from a store, and they actually saw that this was missing a hand, and it turns out that someone had broken into the box and snuck out the extra hand. I don't know why they were in such desperate need of one, but I guess their MonsterArts 2021 Godzilla was missing a hand. So, like, come on, if you're stealing the hand, why not go for the actual figure? But you know what? I got a discount. My dad got a discount for me, and that's why I only have one hand. But I wasn't necessarily planning on getting this thing for the hand. I wasn't necessarily getting it all, yet here I am with both of them. But to actually put it on, I don't know if I can actually do this without, like, the whole joint popping off on me. No, I don't want to. But yeah, you can kind of see, like, this is my fault. You can kind of see it's starting to split. So like just this hand where it meets the peg would split off, or sorry, pop off, and then you pop this hand on it. You can actually go back to my original reviews of this guy and actually see in action, but there you go. Next, let's actually go over the King of the Monsters Godzilla, because this is something we can do. Let's go to the jaw and carefully pop it out. If you're having trouble, just use a blow dryer, very minorly. And you're going to want to angle the ball joint right in that hole, you see? And just pop it in there, shove it in, and there you go. It should look like this. Now, you can definitely see that there's a bit of problems. The teeth are a little iffily painted. I mean, they look technically better than this, but at the same time, I feel like they could have cleaned it up. Also, the membrane, again, it's kind of obvious where it's supposed to be sculpted, and it doesn't really paint itself all the way. And yeah, so you're going to see he kind of opens his mouth really wide. And that's going to be a problem because you're supposed to take this part of the beam, and actually, let's see if I can do this on camera. Let's kind of like angle it in the right direction, because there's like a certain way you're supposed to do it, but like there's literally no instructions as to like the right way to do it, because the doors, hold on, there we go. Nope, that wasn't it. There you go. So you're supposed to have this thing at a very, come on, a very certain degree of like, see this top part? I think you're supposed to have it this way and then peg it in. I'll be right back. So here is the beam with Godzilla. It looks I feel like this is one of those things that looks really good in concept, as we'll talk about, but not so well in actual execution. Why? Look at that mouth. Like, just get a good look at that. Because of the fact that it weighs down the whole mouth, it's literally opening itself literally this wide, like a cobra, displacing the jaw itself out of place. And not to mention, it's kind of clear where the attachment is, because like this part is supposed to be like bigger than the beam itself when it's firing, and it just doesn't look like 100% flush with itself. And there's also a bit of a minor color difference. This just looks more like a purplish, not necessarily purple, but an indigo purple hue. That said, I definitely think that the beam itself also is going to warp itself down over time. And you can kind of see like there's clearly like this weird curve in mine. I guess that's probably because of the previous seller. But again, I can only really speculate. At this point as well, there's also no stand. So even if you wanted to put the beam in the mouth like this without it warping, you can't really unless you buy a stand. But that said, there is one thing that you can do with it, And what is that? You can actually make him shoot the beam into the sky. And this is awesome engineering on MonsterArts' part. However, again, it's one of those things that's really good in concept, but not so much in execution because you can't display this thing like this. Because over time, that beam is going to sag down either this way, that way, that way, whichever way out of 360 degrees, because it's made of a softer plastic and there's no stand. This entire support structure is based around this piece and that little ball peg. And it's honestly kind of weird engineering that clearly didn't have a whole lot of thought put into it. They probably just said, let's make him look up and shoot the beam without any other thought. So unfortunately, it doesn't really look good in the long run. And yes, in case if you're wondering, this Godzilla, the GVK one, can utilize the KOTM bottom jaw piece and the beam itself. And honestly, this is kind of what I expected it to look. However, I do think that, if you're wondering, the bottom jaw and the teeth on the actual head of the GVK Godzilla don't color match, because this is color matched like the actual teeth on the base figure for King of the Monsters, and that has the blue teeth, so they don't exactly align. Also, if you notice, this is dark blue, this is lighter blue. So if you really, really wanted to have a beam for your GVK Godzilla, your best bet is going to be the Spitfire Godzilla from 2014. That said, it's probably way overpriced, considering the fact that it's 10 years old now in 2025. I don't remember when the figure was released, like late 2014, 2015 maybe. So again, it's been a while, but yes. And if you're wondering, if you really just want like a uniform Spitfire Godzilla and you have the two of them, I would recommend popping off the KOTM head, putting on the KOTM alternate jaw and beam, and putting it all on the GVK body, and boom, you have a more uniform Godzilla figure that actually looks like a standard Spitfire. Just ignore this top dorsal plate not being fired, and hope you excuse the lack thereof a more whitened out blue eyeball. And if you're wondering what I'm holding the beam on, let's just say we don't talk about Bruno. So for accessories, I definitely think the King of the Monsters Godzilla is going to feature the more better accessories because it actually comes with a beam versus this one where it's kind of like a conundrum as to like what it is supposed to be, because you have the fins that are lighting up. Okay, is this an intimidation display Godzilla? But his mouth is glowing. His eyes are glowing. That signifies he's firing something. But we get no beam. This is a base form Godzilla. No blue. But comes with a beam. So why is it that the base form Godzilla gets a beam, but the Spitfire one doesn't? Then again, this is a MonsterArts situation, and they would later release the 2001 and 1989 variants of the figures, and they don't have beams, so yeah. But at the same time, alternate hands, considering the fact that they're the same as this one's, kind of loses all relevancy. And I don't see why these ones could not have been the alternate hands, but I guess, hey, you can split them out, yada, yada, yada. And this beam is cool in concept, so really cool in execution as far as the mold is concerned, but it's not the best connection. That's honestly where my biggest problem is. But that said, kind of no point when considering the fact that the 2024 Godzilla has both of them, the alternate hands plus the beam. So, yay. But in my personal opinion, I'm going to say 7 let's actually go 7.5 for the accessories for the KOTM Godzilla, 6.5 for the accessory. Actually, let's just say 6 out of 10 for the accessories on this Godzilla, because alternate hands, they're cool, but really, that's it. So here they are with some 6-inch Monsterverse Michael Dougherty Godzillas with the Playmates He-Ray Godzilla from Godzillakongthenewempire and NECA's 2019 V2 Godzilla poster version. And some more for the last round of it. The Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic 2021 Godzilla. I really need another Hiya Toys Godzilla, so we'll see what happens. He-Ray version from GVK, so basically his equivalent. And the NECA 2014 Godzilla original release. And so overall, because I really want to end this review because it's been a lot longer than I thought it'd be, this pairing, I'm going to say, is really, really good. If I had to really pick one over the other, I would say figure on figure, strip away the accessories, the GVK Godzilla is going to be the better executed of the two. That said, the King of the Monsters figure is not a bad figure at all. It is actually quite great. More pretty good. Pretty good, very close to great. But it's just the paint issues and like the articulation being a tad bit limited that kind of dials it back. The GVK Godzilla really expands upon the issues of it not having like much vibrancy to it, or like that much, well, paint, even though this guy doesn't really have much paint. It kind of fixes the paint like the dorsal plates and the chest. And frees up the articulation a bit more because of things like the arms, head, legs, and tail. That said, I definitely think the King of the Monsters Godzilla does come with the better accessories because it doesn't just come with alternate hands and call it a day. It actually gives you the ability to kind of interchange the jaw and give you an atomic breath piece, which is the one thing that this guy should have come with. Like, I'm just gonna ask this, Tamashi. Was this too hard? Nice fuzz. Look at that. That looks awesome. Anyway, as for my recommendations, if you really want one of them, I would honestly just say skip both, get the 2024 version, because that's essentially these two combined. It's a fusion of the two because it comes with the hands of this guy, and I think, to my knowledge, the engineering from what I read, and the accessories of him. That said, I definitely think it's time to retire this mold because it has been like how many figures we've gotten of this mold. Looking online, there's like a ton of them, so yeah. This Godzilla definitely served its purpose, and I'm so happy that I own at least two of them because I really only intended on getting one of them. At first, I kind of wanted the MonsterArts Godzilla, but then the NECA kind of won me over. And then the MonsterArts 2021 came along, and actually, because I got this guy a few years ago before him, and he was a really great figure, all things considered. I still enjoy him to this day. But that said, it's kind of clear which one I personally, well, not kind of clear which one I personally prefer, but as far as like the modern day mark in 2025, I got lucky off this guy because I got him in a lot with the 2002 Goji. But that said, just go to Big Bad Toy Store. I don't know if it's still there, but they did a reissue recently, and yeah, it was there. So if you're willing to shell out that type of money, I think you just get that Godzilla. But as for these two, if you really just want the legacy figures, not bad at all. And I definitely think that there are some things to love here. That said, for my final scores, I'm going to rate the King of the Monsters Godzilla a 7.5 out of 10 and the GVK Godzilla an 8 out of 10. Very, very good entries. But that said, things could have been done better. But with that said, thank you guys for watching this double review. I want to do more double reviews in the future just because I can knock out more figures this way. But we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everyone.